Eric Grief. I work at the business school. I'm a member of the Cycle Forum, and I'm one of the people who contributed to the strategy that we're going to present later on. Just want to say a big welcome to everybody for turning up in such big numbers. Thanks very much for your time and for your interest in the work that we've put together. We'll do a quick round the table in a minute. Everybody quickly introduce themselves. But before we do that, health and safety. There's a gents' toilet to the right on the first floor. There's a ladies' toilet on the second floor. And there's, if the fire alarm does go off, make your way out of the door, to the left, down the stairs, and to the big patio outside the business school. I want to say a big thank you to the university for hosting the event today, to Ian McCormack, who's provided the teas and coffees for today. Ian's going to do a little introduction on behalf of the university. After Ian, we're going to have Joanne Downing from British Cycling. She's going to talk a little bit about the context of cycling, and then John's going to do the presentation. After the presentation, there's opportunity for people to give a reaction and then ask questions and answer the discussion. And we need to leave the room here by about 12:45. And once we finish, we can still hang around for teas and coffees, etc. Okay, so a quick round the table.
Yeah. Hi, my name's Jon McCormack. I'm the Energy and Environment Manager at the University of Portsmouth.
Good morning, everyone. I'm Mark Griffin. I'm the Assistant of the Service for Transport for Portsmouth City Council.
Good morning. I'm Simon Moon, Head of Transport and Environment Services at the City Council.
I'm Vic Coleman. I'm the Conservative Candidate for Portsmouth.
Mark Hussain, Managing Director of the Health and IT.
Charlie Yady, Chief Executive of Motorstates and Vice President.
Scott Lewis, Assistant Head Teacher from Primary School.
Well, Mandy Raymond, Reception Manager and Operations Coordinator at Portsmouth College.
Good morning, Ben Dowling, one of the councillors.
Jonathan Jackson, and Leader in Portsmouth, and also Orange Independent Life Collect in Portsmouth.
Nicky Lyon, Facilities Manager for Portsmouth City.
Vicky Tracy, Benefits Specialist at All Europe.
Rick Burks, I'm with the university and a member of the Cycle Forum.
Hello, Charles Burns, Secretary of the Federation of Small Business in the South East Thames branch.
Hi everyone, I'm Jo Downing. I am Recreation Manager for British Cycling in the South.
In the South, Councillor for Bathingswood.
And Darren Summers, also Councillor for Bathingswood, with the Democrat candidate.
I'm Wallace Doe. I just member of the CTC, and I'm a cyclist from Portsmouth and all over the world.
Donna Jones, Leader of Portsmouth City Council.
Morning, Ken Alcombe, Cabinet Member for Traffic and Transportation for City Council.
Jonathan Crellin, I'm a member of the university as well, and also was on the Cycle Strategy Committee.
Sam Coote, I'm perhaps representing Portsmouth Friends of the Earth, and I was involved in the production of the strategy.
David Brown, Portsmouth Cycle Forum, involved in the production of the strategy.
Phil Kirk, member of the Portsmouth Cycle Forum.
John Holland, Vice Chair of the Portsmouth Cycle Forum.
I'm Hayley Sawyer, I'm about my area, still a book
Sorry, I'm Jon Spencer. I'm Chair of the Portsmouth Cycle Forum. I wasn't paying attention.
Okay. Welcome to new guests. We've just done a little introduction. If you could give your name and which organisation you're from.
I'm Matthew Williamson on Ishneham, Craneswater, Ward City Council.
Thank you.
Ian Coke, Surrey Central Green Party.
Thank you very much. Okay. We are filming presentations today. If you have any objections, if you want any of your contributions to be removed from the recordings, please let us know afterwards. Over to Ian Cormack.
Thank you. Thanks, Good morning everybody. As I said in the introduction, my name is Ian McCormack, Energy Environment Manager for the university here. Part of my role is to try and get students to come to work by means other than their car. We So I'm well versed at drafting sustainable travel plans and our sustainable travel code of practice. So my first comment on the cycle strategy is well done for producing such a sound document, because I know how hard they are to write and to appeal to a large audience. So congratulations on that. I just wanted to say on behalf of Bernie Topham, our Chief Operating Officer, she was very desperate to get here, just couldn't make it, so I'm standing in for her. So she is supports the agenda to the full. We are working on issues in the city, and I'll reflect some of those in a moment. I've just got about a few words to say about the document. Put things in context with the university. We have 20,000 students, 2,500 staff, all accessing the city centre every day. We're well aware that we contribute to traffic, congestion and associated traffic pollution that causes, and we are working on an agenda at the moment to try and make things different. We are encouraging staff, students and our visitors to access the city by other means. We are part of the Easy Portsmouth network, which is a very good network. We're offering our staff access to discounted public transport. That's been extremely popular and was one of the largest launches in the UK, I understand. We publicised the Park and Ride scheme. I understand that's going very well, and some of our open days we have in the city, I think we're publicising that to alleviate congestion in the city and associated traffic pollution. And we are looking at improving our own facilities and provision for cyclists. We see it as a key part of our work in the city and relations with the City Council. The cycling strategy, which myself and Bernie have read, in our opinion is a key document, as well thought through. It's produced at a very good time. I think Portsmouth deserves a sustainable transport system, much like some of the other major cities in the UK that have benefited from cycling provision and promotion. There is no doubt that cities do benefit from the type of forward thinking that includes provision for cyclists for leisure, or even for those serious commuters on their bikes coming from quite long distances. We know we have staff coming in from Southampton, so that's quite an achievement. I'm cycling every day from Southsea, and I must say that it's one of the most easiest cities that I've cycled in to get to and from work. So Portsmouth is ideal for cycling for everyone. With the right provision, families, tourists, visitors, students, local businesses and commuters can really change the face of transport in Portsmouth, I think. At this time of regeneration in our city, I think it's a really ideal opportunity to include some good design for cyclists. Cyclists is actually good for your health. It does help with levels of fitness, and it is accessible for all, but we do have to sort out issues with cycling safety in the city. There is hesitation at the university about encouraging staff and students cycling when we know we don't want to put their safety at risk, and we know there are issues with crime around cycling. We're working on that. So from what we've read, this strategy asks that we make our streets safer for families, tourists to enjoy, and for those commuting a much longer distance. We'd all enjoy less congestion and better air quality, considering that we all work and live, and all the school children right now breathing in the air in Portsmouth that we need to make improvements on. Cycling is really high on the profile at the moment due to, amongst other things, the Olympics. I've noticed along the seafront now some quite interesting triathlon events, including some quite serious cycling. I've not taken advantage of that or got caught up in one event, but it seems that that's become increasingly on the map in the city. So what I'm trying to say here, I don't think there's no better opportunity than now really to take advantage of cycling, put Portsmouth firmly on the map for cycling, not just in the UK but in Europe And I don't think anyone would be disappointed with the efforts that Portsmouth Cycle Forum has put into producing the strategy, so the university is behind that and will work with its staff and students to do what we can. Thank you very much.
Okay, thank you. Thanks very much. Over now to Joe Downing. Say a few words for British cycling.
Hi everyone. I just wanted to start by saying thank you for this opportunity to talk to you in very brief detail today with regards to what we do. And also just to say congratulations to John and the rest of the Pompey Bug for putting together the cycle strategy. Very happy to be here today to support the work that you're doing. So just a little bit about British Cycling. I'm sure most of you know we are the national governing body for cycling in this country. What that means is we're across all aspects of cycling. So from the very sexy, glamorous, gold medal winning Team GB stuff that you see on the telly and in the news, but also the grassroots stuff, so the stuff we're doing in schools and the stuff we're doing around participation to try and get more people onto bikes, that behaviour change stuff. Our main source of funding comes from Sport England, so we have a whole sport plan. It's a 4-year plan that says what we're going to do to get more people cycling, and within that we have some fairly hefty participation targets to reach over the next few years. So how are we going about doing that? Well, one of the ways we're doing it is by working with local authorities. So over the past 6 years we've developed a partnership offer which consists of joint investment. So British Cycling invest, and then the local authority invests as well. The local authorities are using LSTF money, so local sustainable transport funding, but they're also using public health money more and more often now to invest into these partnerships. And cycling, unlike many other sports, actually cuts across many agendas for a local authority. I've already mentioned 2, there's transport and health right there. I know that when John goes on to talk about the strategy, there'll be many other agendas of a local authority that you'll see cycling cutting across. And through the delivery of our recreational programmes and our partnership work, we're trying to help local authorities meet their objectives, their transport objectives, their health objectives, their social objectives. So that's the partnership that we're involved with. When we started this work 6 years ago, we were working with 5 councils. Today we're working with 60, and we're delivering in over 103 locations across the country. So the size and scope of the work we're doing has grown dramatically, as the profile of cycling has as well. So what's within our partnership offer? We've got traffic-free events, city centre events, where we close roads and get people out on their bikes for the day. You may have heard of Skyride, that's our flagship event. We also run guided bike rides. So this is where you go out with a locally trained ride leader on locally planned, risk-assessed routes. This programme takes away a lot of the barriers that stop people from cycling. This programme is called Skyride Local. You might have heard of this programme as well. We do the same just for women, that's called Breeze. And we also have a Ride Social programme which links cyclists within a local community. All of this work is underpinned by a huge national marketing campaign that Sky front and help us with. So that's really what consists within our offer, but I touched a little bit there on behaviour change, and I just want to link this back now to obviously the cycle strategy and what John's going to go on to talk to. This is about the softer measures. So yes, we need infrastructure, yes, we need safe streets to cycle on, but this is about behaviour change. Okay, I'm going to repeat this for dramatic effect. This is about changing people's behaviour. It doesn't happen overnight. Okay, infrastructure is a part of that, safety is a part of that, but we've also got to take people on a journey. I'd stick my neck out and say that if you've driven to work for 20 years, it's very unlikely you'll wake up and think, oh, I'll ride my bike today. Okay, we've got to take people on a journey, and that's what we're doing with our programmes. We're encouraging people to cycle recreationally first, then move them on to commuter journeys and utility journeys. And I'll just read you, this is the DFT stat. Research shows that 86% of the non-cycling population reject the idea of using a bicycle for transport, but 66% would consider riding a bicycle for leisure. Okay, so it's kind of backing up my argument that we need to get people cycling first for the fun of it before we move them onto those commuter journeys. And just some stats from our programmes, we look at moving people from infrequent cycling to more frequent, so maybe monthly. We also look at moving monthly cyclists to weekly cyclists, and then those weekly cyclists become commuters. And our last participant survey that we conducted showed that 39% of people that rode on our recreational programmes went on to become regular commuters. So this is the shift, it's the behaviour change, it's the journey. British Cycling aren't in partnership with Portsmouth City Council at the moment. I did have a really good meeting with Janet Maxwell back in the summer, and I'd be very happy to continue those discussions if it fitted in with the bigger picture and the rest of the work that's been happening. And obviously I'll stick around, happy to answer any questions, but just thank you for that quick opportunity to share that information.
Okay. John, after John has presented the strategy, we distribute the documents itself, so you can have a browse. And I think after John's finished his presentation, we want to invite Donna Jones first to give the comments, because you've triggered the whole event, and us to challenge us to write the strategy, so we'll give you the first opportunity to give your comments out. John's first. Okay, thank you.
Thanks, Eric. I'd just like to echo Eric's thanks to the university for providing us with a room. And thank you to Donna Jones for giving us this opportunity. I was really pleased when you came back to our open letter in the news to say, what are your ideas? Because we're looking for this opportunity to present, if you like, a different way of doing transport. Now, I'd like to start with this. The transport experts in the room will recognise one of these. But it isn't just any car, it's my car. And so I put this up to dispel a myth that cycle campaigners are all fundamentalists who never ever drive. I own this car, and it's the second most expensive thing I've bought in my life. If somebody was to tell me that tomorrow you can't use that anymore and you have to throw away all the money you've invested in it, oh well, I wouldn't be very pleased. But if somebody was to say that maybe we're going to change things so that you can save some of the running costs you have with that thing and get around more easily a different way, and perhaps when that thing comes to the end of its life, you won't have to go to the expense of replacing it, well, that's a more interesting proposition. So we're not approaching this from the point of view that people shouldn't drive. Lots of people need to drive. We need people driving in Portsmouth, but we need them to be able to get around. And then let's move on from a picture of my car to a picture of lots and lots of cars. So here's the background. Back in August, we wrote an open letter to the Evening News and to all councillors following a lorry fire in the A27, which tipped the transport system in Portsmouth into gridlock for several hours, and the queue stretched miles. This picture is from the Southampton Daily Echo and is near the M3 junction, so 15-20 miles away. And in the car you saw just now is somewhere in there with me in it, fuming, because I was on my way home from work. So that's when I composed the open letter in my head. So what can we do about this? Now, there was an interesting contribution in the Evening News last week from a guy called Mike Gilson, who used to be editor. He's moved to Belfast, I think 7 years ago, but he came back to Portsmouth because his son was competing in the Great South Run. And he wrote a piece about Portsmouth and his perceptions of the place coming back after that time. And it's interesting to look at that outsider's perspective. You know, it's always useful to step outside yourself and say, how do other people see us? And so the piece wasn't about traffic, but the scene setting, the opening sentence, he described the city was driving into the car-choked streets of Portsmouth. So that was his description. That's how the outsider sees the city, car-choked. And now, while we're standing back and having a look at ourselves, let's have another look at statistics. We had an interesting meeting with Dr. Janet Maxwell, who helped us navigate the Byzantine Public Health England website. And so we put out a whole bunch. Now I've chosen 3, and I haven't just chosen these 3 because they happen to be the ones that make Portsmouth look bad. There are 20 or so category, and we're not doing well in any of them. So these are the 3 I've picked out. And so we can see that the people of Portsmouth have much worse health outcomes than the average across the southeast. A male in Portsmouth is likely to live for 2 years less than a male from the wider southeast area. People in Portsmouth, 96.3 people per 100,000 population die early from heart disease compared to 68 regionally. We're much heavier than the regional average. 25% of adults in Portsmouth are obese and 60% are obese or overweight. 21% of children at year 6 are obese, 35% are overweight. And we can see why this is. We're much less active than the regional average. The people of Portsmouth, for some reason, have less opportunity to move their bodies, and so obesity and the poor health outcomes and the early deaths from heart disease and cancers are what follow on from that. Moving on from our health to our wealth, let's have a little look at the 3 roads coming into the city. Now, economic prosperity depends on being able to bring customers and goods together. In Portsmouth, we do this largely at the moment by the private car. And so, if we look at the 3 roads coming on off of Portsea Island, it's very easy using the Department of Transport's Manual for Roads and Bridges to work out the vehicle capacity of them. So we can move about just shy of 12,000 cars one way per hour. Using some more Department of Transport statistics, we can work out how many people that is. Now, interestingly, at off-peak times, there are on average 1.5 people in each car, so we can move about 18,000 people. At peak times, when we need the capacity most, there are only 1.2 in each car, so we can only move about 14,000 people when we need the capacity most. So not only have we got a scarce bit of road space, and there's not really room for any more, we're largely using it to carry empty seats. This is a hard limit on the economy of the city. If you need people to get to services, to buy stuff, you need to be able to move more people to grow the economy. The way we're going at the moment, that is not possible. If we want our children, if we want the economy to grow, if we want our children to live better lives than we do, something's got to change. And now, if I just reflect back to my car I showed you, the most expensive thing I've ever bought, and I think about the amount of money that's tied up in that, and then using a back of the envelope calculation, when I work out that 86% of the time I own that car, it's just sat stationary on a street in Southsea, using up a scarce parking space, while it slowly degrades to be worthless, and that money is just gone. And that's money that will never go into the economy. And the money I use on that car to keep it filled up, to keep it insured, and to meet all the other costs, leaves Portsea Island and never comes back. It goes to tax havens in the Cayman Islands and doesn't pass go. That is money that could be going to local traders, it could be going to local business, but I can't afford to spend it with those local traders because I've tied it all up in the car, because that's what I need to do to move my family around. So, we have a little look about what that means to how people live. So this is a sketch of Fratton Road. So it's towards the south end where we've lost the bus lane. We've got two vehicle lanes coming south, a vehicle lane going north. Now, I just want to tell you a little anecdote about this road. A few months ago, I needed a new Scouts uniform for my son. So I thought about it and decided we would drive up to the Scout store at Hilsey, because I couldn't think of a good way to get from Southsea to Hilsey by bike with a 10-year-old. It wasn't either excruciatingly slow or terrifying for him. So up we drove, up Cotton Road, arrived at the Scout store, bought the bits and pieces we need, and then set off. Now, because the car was pointing that way, we came back down the A2047, London Road, Kingston Road, Fratton Road. To go from Hilsey to Fratton Station, which I think is 2.5 miles, took 35 minutes. Now, this was just an ordinary Saturday morning. Pompey weren't playing at home, there were no events on, it was just an ordinary Saturday. Now, that road is not working for anybody. I was driving and it was not working for me as a driver. We know it's the most dangerous road in the city for cyclists. There are roughly 4 times more cycle injuries on that road than the next worst. The only people moving on that road were pedestrians. But let's think about it a minute, because largely I stuck with it all the way because I became interested in how long it was going to take. Mostly people were getting frustrated and then disappearing into side streets, where then they drove to make up time because they spent 5-10 minutes getting themselves good and angry before they drove off into residential streets. So what does it mean for where those people live in those surrounding residential streets? Well, they're already overloaded with parking because this street's trying to be too many things. It's trying to be a shopping street, it's trying to be a residential street, and it's trying to be an A road that takes people in and out of the city. And those things all conflict. So people are all parking these residential streets, which has a huge impact on the residents, and then it forces lots and lots of traffic into those streets, which means the streets where people live, where their children live, where their parents live, where their grandparents live. So those people become, almost prisoners of the traffic. It's very hard for them to interact with their neighbours. Going outside becomes an unpleasant thing to do. And if we look at the outside environment here, because we have to forget, as I said, the only people here are moving. But let's think about what they're moving in, because all this stationary traffic is all coughing out this stuff. And so what we've got here, and the colours aren't really showing up too well, but we've got a high-sided urban canyon. It's filling up with nitrous dioxide and soot. And that partially burned soot and nitrous dioxide is estimated to cost the health service nationally 20 billion a year. It's the second biggest health threat anyone faces after smoking. And so, what does that mean to the people of Portsmouth? Well, it means this. It means that 600 people every year die early because of the bad air. So let's think about that number a minute. 600. So that's not counting the people who die early because of the bad house outcomes because they're inactive. And that's not counting the people who die early because of incidents on the road. That's just from the air pollution. So how many people do die early each year because of our transport choices? My transport choices as much as anybody else's. If we ran a railway like this, well, we wouldn't just be shut down, we'd be in prison. So what can we do? Well, I'll give you a rest. Not much else does. So it's the only way where you can spend one pot of money and get an outcome in all 4 of those areas. Cycling is relatively cheap to implement. As Chris Boardman said, the whole country could be done for the price of less than 1 tube station. It can be implemented fairly quickly, and it's fine to be talking about solutions in 20 years' time, but it'd be really nice to change something before then, I think. public transport and improving public transport infrastructure in Portsmouth is vital, and we need to do that too, but it takes longer and needs more investment. So I think the priority action is to do something about cycling. To look at how we can gradually increase our spend level. I'm not saying we should start spending £10 a head tomorrow because we just waste it. We don't have the capacity or the expertise to spend that money wisely at the moment. But we need to be looking at how we can grow that spend to that level over the next few years to have real effects. The Department for Transport has just launched what it's called a National Cycle Delivery Plan. So that document is a 10-year strategy for delivering cycling across the country and invites local authorities, and invites LEPs to go into partnership with central government to deliver ambitious programmes for change in their areas. So this document is written to be the ambitious programme for change that could happen in Portsmouth. Now this is an ambitious document, but there's nothing in here that's not already done somewhere. So there's nothing in here which is in cloud cuckoo land. And we have written this document specifically so that with the change of logo, it could be used as a cycling strategy if we wanted to for Portsmouth. And that would be our ideal outcome. And we'd love that cycle strategy to be developed and adopted soon, and we'd like it to be managed by a cross-party group. This affects everyone's life in the city, and we don't want to just make it a political football that gets kicked into the long grass next May. So I won't talk through every action in the strategy because that would be dull for everybody. But the point we're making is to get the good outcomes in these 4 areas, we need to increase cycling. To increase cycling, we need to tackle 5 action areas. Safety is the first one. People perceive the roads to be in Portsmouth to be too dangerous to cycle on, and the roads in Portsmouth are more dangerous than the national average. And we know where the problem is. So we need an immediate plan for cycle safety to keep drivers, cyclists and pedestrians safe from each other. We need to think about how people can get around efficiently by bike. So the term superhighways is used, and that, if you like, conjures visions. But if you go to London, you know, they're quite simple things. It's really just a cycle route. It doesn't get interrupted very much. So just like you have a major road coming into the city and you don't really have to give way very often, it's just the same, but for bikes. It's not a great glass and steel edifice, you know, as the name might suggest. We'd like to see better integration with public transport, more hire bikes. Equality is a key piece. I think cycling in Portsmouth at the moment is really for the fit and the brave. It needs to be for everyone. It needs to be, Portsmouth should be a city where our children can go cycling. The government wants all children in year 6 to be able and choose to walk or cycle to school. So we need to have a road network that we're happy to put our children on their own if we're going to achieve that. So how can we do that? We need disabled people on adaptive bikes to be able to use the roads without feeling squeezed out. We need somewhere for mobility scooters to go, because they're like cyclists, nobody likes them on the pavement and nobody likes them on the road. So all these things need to be considered. As Joe very eloquently put it, cycling has become the 3rd most popular participation sport in the country, so it has a huge potential to make an impact to the health of the city. So people trying cycling for the first time do it as a leisure activity. And as Joe put it, if you want those people to then transfer their day-to-day journeys to the bike, then those initial leisure journeys have got to work. They've got to be enjoyable. And finally, planning. The planning system needs to allow more for cycling to maximise the impact that new developments can make, the positive impact new developments can make on our cycling infrastructure. How can we get these new developments coming to our city to make a really positive contribution here? How can we store bikes? We had an interesting issue came up with the Cycle Forum a few weeks ago where a lady wrote us to say that she decided to get rid of her car and she had a house in Portsmouth driveway, so she put up on the front of her house a little shelter to put her bike in. And been told by planning to take it down. Now, if she'd had a transit van, she could have left it parked in her driveway looking much worse forever. But the people of Portsmouth live largely in terraced houses, and we need to consider ways for them to store their bikes, because not everyone wants to take off all the paint down their hallway, as I do. Okay, so just looking at the outcomes, and now these are the figures we looked at earlier on, but now I'm comparing us with Cambridge. Now, the reason I'm comparing us with Cambridge is because, like Portsmouth, it's another flat university town. But 4.6% of journeys in Portsmouth are made by bike, compared to 16% in Cambridge. And then you can see 64% of adults in Cambridge are active, compared to the 51 in Portsmouth. And you can see the heart disease, the obesity, it all corresponds. So somehow they've become the best city in the country for cycling, and we need to learn from that. And as I said, Portsmouth is also flat, but Portsmouth is 2 degrees warmer in the winter on average than Cambridge. We should be able to really outperform them. You know, we shouldn't be at a quarter of their level, we should be exceeding their level. It's much more pleasant, it should be much more pleasant to cycle here than it is there. And now, a couple of things have come out in the last week or so. Public Health England published a report saying that the cost of inactivity to the National Health Service is rising to 7.8 billion. But they went on to say with a 500 million investment, that could be virtually wiped out. In a separate report, we found that the NHS is facing an annual 8 billion shortfall. So, by tackling inactivity, we can wipe out over 7 billion of that 8 billion. Is it just me, or is that not a hard decision? Looking at the economy, you can fit 7 times as many bikes into the equivalent amount of road space. So, if you can persuade people to cycle, as Joe said, and you can provide them space to cycle, you can grow the capacity of your transport system enormously. New York has had a program of implementing separated cycle lanes over the last 4 or 5 years, which is now coming to fruition. A lot of it is on the ground, and they found that now vehicle trips, despite the fact they've taken lanes off the road, car trips for the people who still need to use their cars have got faster, because the capacity for, you know, the usage of cycling has grown to such an extent that the traffic is reduced sufficiently for it to actually work better for everybody. So there is precedent that this approach can work. We know from numerous studies, and I think Joe's brought some British Cycling have looked into this, and they published a report on cycling in the economy. The cyclists are much more likely to support high streets and local businesses. The environment, well, it's obvious. We cut down car journeys and increase bike journeys, we get more breathable air. There's currently press reports saying that Portsmouth is one of the locations in England that could be facing a fine from the European Commission for failing to meet its air quality targets, or we could have punitive air quality management areas imposed upon us. Well, let's not wait for somebody else to impose a solution upon us. Let's come up with our own solution. And the city will become more livable. We'll have connected communities, peaceful neighbourhoods, and there are all sorts of mental health benefits to living in a quiet city. Copenhagen is frequently voted the most livable city in the world, and it's no coincidence that it's also one of the cities with the highest cycle use in the world. So this is what we wanted to sign up to. A 10-year strategy to work supporting the government cycling delivery plan, with targets to halve the rate of cycle accidents and halve them again. The perceived safety, now this is a key one, so what this means is how safe do people think cyclists are, and how safe do non-cyclists, people who aren't cycling, think cycling is, because currently only about 30% of people who don't cycle think it would be safe to cycle. If you want people to try it, it has to look better than that, so we really need to look at growing those numbers. This is the key one, to unlock the benefits I've talked about. It's just get more journeys on bike. The safety is the key barrier. And getting more journeys on bikes, getting our kids active, getting our kids to cycle to school. So this is what we'd like you to sign up to. And I'll just finish by showing a couple of kind quotes we've had. And so what we, Portsmouth Cycle Forum, would like to do next is to, if you like, have a discussion about the detail of this document with the officers at the City Council, and then we'd like to meet with you again in maybe a month to discuss what can be done, because I think that the current transport situation in Portsmouth is untenable. Change has to happen, and what can that be? So, thank you for listening. And so, Craig here from Wiggle.
Take questions, Jon?
Yes.
Comments?
I'm going to reserve my comments for when I speak in a moment.
Okay.
Some time ago, I think it's Carl Leroy suggested that we had a cycle through the highway. Is that, have you thought about that in your plans?
Okay, well, the approach we've taken is to say that you need these things and you need to make sure both the infrastructure and the environment is right to encourage people to cycle. But we have stopped short of going down into the detail of individual streets, because as soon as you start saying, well, we think you should do this specifically in Kingston Road, you've disappeared down a rabbit hole that you're never coming out of.
Yeah.
Okay, so this is a strategy document, and so we've kept ourselves to those strategic principles. You need to have a target, you need to develop cycling. There are hard problems to solve, but we're fortunate in that we've got officers of an extremely high calibre to solve them, and politicians of an extremely high calibre to connect them with the funding that they need.
I think one of the issues for us is, as you say, is funding, and at the moment, obviously, discussing it with Janet Maxwell, and I'm sure public health will play their part in moving this forward. Unfortunately, in terms of the LSTF money, we were unsuccessful with a bid for next year, so there is no money coming from that area. So we're going to have to make sure that we get best benefit for bucks. So every pound we spend, we want the maximum benefit from it, and that is quite a difficult thing to do. I think, I had a discussion with a reporter from the news recently, which I noticed you were commented on, where I started talking about the long-term issues of the city and things like at some point in the future. He did get it slightly wrong. I wasn't suggesting it was next week, next year, or whenever, but sometime in the future the city will have to look at addressing the congestion issues. I put forward one possible solution to that, and the public reaction is obviously, from those who aren't interested in cycling buses or trains, was completely adverse. And it's about persuading those people that there is an alternative way. I'm not quite sure what the mechanics of actually getting people out their cars, what do you think is the actual factor that will persuade them to do that? Obviously a better infrastructure will help, but those who are dyed-in-the-wool tin can occupiers will be extremely difficult to move.
Yes, absolutely, and some of them will never move, but we're not suggesting that you have to change all of them.
No.
You just have to change some of them. And I think there are quite a lot of people out there who would like to cycle, who sit in the traffic and think, I really don't like this, but don't want to cycle because they feel they're jumping into an unpleasant infrastructure. You touched on a number of things there. In terms of funding, that's obviously always a difficult problem, but I would observe that there are a number of local authorities around the country who, when they've committed to doing this and to deciding to change, they found the funding from various sources. It's slightly problematic, as was said in the video, that it tends to be grant funding that only goes for a certain amount of time, but they started. So I think if we accept that we need to change, then I think there are outside of the standard funding routes. I think that perhaps there are routes to money. And you touched on the last thing, which was your article. I thought you were very brave to mention congestion charging. And I mentioned it socially in a pub once, and nearly got lynched. So going into the paper, I think it's great.
I also mentioned workplace charging levy, but that didn't quite come up with quite the same reaction.
I would suggest, and now this is just my thought, but I would suggest that maybe a more attractive approach would be, instead of levying an additional charge on motorists, is work out a way of giving a financial incentive to people who don't. So deliver some, an apparent tax cut to the non-motorist. So, turn it around might be the way.
I don't want to pinch any of what Donna's about to say, but obviously there are things in train that we are trying to do, as you know from our discussions through the Cycle Forum. So, but I'll leave Donna to do some of that.
Yes, so.
Well, everyone's beat me to it, because I wanted to say thank you very much to you for stepping up to the plate, stepping up to the challenge, and to everyone involved in the Cycle Forum, because as Jon's quite rightly said, when I saw the letter in the paper, I'd not long been leader of the council, and there was a letter very eloquently put explaining frustrations, and also particularly focusing on the safety issues for cyclists in Portsmouth. And I read that letter and I thought, actually there are some really good points there. I need to meet with these people. It's no good me, actually I'm not I do cycle, I've got children and we do cycle for leisure, but we don't cycle very far because the roads in Portsmouth are dangerous and my children are too young for me to take that step with them at the moment. So we'll often drive somewhere and then cycle, and then we put the cars back on a bike rack and we go back home, and that kind of defeats the object actually. But it was really that led me to thinking, well, I'm not actually an expert. I don't cycle the streets of Portsmouth on a daily basis during rush hour, and you guys do. You're the experts. I need to hear from you. I need to hear, and so does Ken, who is really managing this on a daily basis with our professionals. We need to know what you think. And I'm delighted that when I put the challenge for you to come up with a cycling strategy, you have, and you've done it very, very well. It's a very impressive document, and I really like the stuff that's in here. I think it's been put together very well, and the 5 key points are really good ones, and I'm going to use those as a basis to move on. Health is a really key thing, as everyone's talked about, and the important thing about health is if we all stand back, and particularly us at the City Council, and we think, okay, what are we trying to achieve for the people of Portsmouth through having nice tarmac streets and pleasant plants and shrubberies and a thriving seafront and well-educated children at schools and good companies in the city who are here for the long term, who are employing people and providing jobs and good quality housing? What's all that for? It's to try and provide an excellent quality of life for the citizens of this city so they can live as long as they possibly can. That's what we're trying to achieve, all of us. So therefore, the health element of getting more people on their bikes is absolutely key, and it goes to the heart of what we're trying to achieve as a local authority, and also what ultimately the government is trying to achieve. Now, health is also important because they have more money than we do in local government. And therefore, the fact that you've met with Janet already and she's gone through with me the conversations that you've had with her is important. Ken's also very aware of the fact that his depleting pot could be supported by health money so that he can deliver some of the good, high-quality strategies that he wants to deliver for cycling within Portsmouth. And Joe, you made an excellent point. Someone who's been driving for 20 years to work, it's a huge step to move to cycling every day to work. And so little and often, getting them out on a guided cycle around the city, what a great idea. And I'm going to come back to that right at the very end with an idea that I've got. But actually, it's about people taking that first step. If they haven't ridden a bike for 15 or 20 years, getting them to do that, the confidence, then getting them out from maybe somewhere like Fox's Forest onto a proper road, onto a B road, then onto an A road, and actually taking those important sort of bite-sized chunks so that they feel confident and they feel safe. Obviously, the council has a big part of that in helping people to feel safe, in making sure that there's adequate signage and making sure that there are superhighways. I love the idea of cycling superhighways. We kind of have the basis of a couple of them there already, for example with the Eastern Road, but these things can be built on and can be improved upon no end. Also, I think the other key thing for me is something you've spoken about the CDP, the Cycling Development Plan that the Department for Transport has launched, and I think it's absolutely essential that Portsmouth City Council becomes sets up a partnership in conjunction with the DFT to make sure that we get a number of things. Now, the sorts of things, if we set this up and we have an effective, adopted cycling partnership working in conjunction with the DFT, we will get priority access to new funding streams. We'll get support via the DFT's Active Travel Consortium, and they'll also give us support in implementing our plans. Their experts can help us. People that have been working on London projects for the DFT will be able to come down here and give us their expertise and their opinion on these things. So I think the cycling development plan, the consultation document that's out there with the DFT at the moment is absolutely key, and this is a great start towards the first step in that. Secondly, you mentioned about the funding. At the moment, there's crudely £5 per head per person in the UK. That's nowhere near enough, as you said. And I know that the government have given a pledge that they want that to be doubled to £10, but not until 2021. That leaves us with an issue. We don't want to wait all of that time until we are moving forward to where we want to be. We want to speed that up. And money is a key factor in these things. But you've mentioned the LEP and you've mentioned the partnership and things like the local growth fund money. There's currently £6 billion that's been allocated through LEPs across the country for transport type projects, with another £6 billion unallocated at the moment. Well, as leader of Portsmouth City Council, I'm also a director of the Solent LEP. So if we're putting together good, strong bids to the Solent LEP, I'm in a good place to be able to go and really fight for us as one of the people that actually sit around that table and make the decisions about where the funds will be allocated. And I think having the CDP, having the cycling development plan in conjunction with the DFT is absolutely the right way to go forward with that. In terms of safety, that is an expert job. I've got ideas, layman ideas, how implementable they are I don't know, but that's really where Ken and the team that he's got at the council, I really want them to be working on this, and I know that we've already got our own cycling plan, and I know that Ken is going to be looking at this very, very closely, and I'm going to welcome the feedback from him. Two final points. The economy. Yeah, people will be more attracted to this city if it is less congested to get here. I had to drive from where I live in Drayton down to Southsea and back on Saturday to pick up one of my children. And I left home at about 2 o'clock and I got home at 3:10. It took me an hour and 10 minutes. And I didn't stop when I got to Southsea. I literally pulled up outside, he got in the car and we drove back home again. Yes, Pompey were playing at home, but that's the other side of the city. I went down the M275 and back again. It was horrendous. And actually, if you were somebody who was thinking of opening a new business in Portsmouth and you were thinking, oh, I want to go and see what the economy's like on a Saturday, let's see how easy it is to get in and out. Actually, the park and ride was working well, there were people there, it was quite full up, but even so, the roads still we have an issue. And I think we're getting to the point now where even those that sit in a tin can for 20 years are starting to think, I have to do something different now, because this is really not pleasant anymore. And finally, in terms of some ideas, I would love to meet with you again in a month's time. So we'll definitely do that, and we'll definitely take this forward, if not sooner, so that we can start to put together a comprehensive bid for the CDP. But in addition to that, we need to do something bigger. If we're going to get people, like Joe has said, to take those first baby steps to getting onto a bike for the first time in years, and to start to try and gently re-educate people on alternative ways to get to and from the shop, to and from a friend's house, to and from work, I think it needs to be a bit bigger. And there's a couple of things I mentioned when we met before. And one of them was, does Portsmouth want a Boris Bike type scheme? Do we really want to go all out? Do we want to do a big national bid to the DFT? Do we really want to say, look, we've not only got health issues, we've also got congestion issues. Do we want to go big on this? And the council has money set aside, and Cambridge is telling me about it, to increase the number of bikes available for hire across the city. That's really important. But actually, one of the things that Ken and I would really like to do, and we'd like to work through the ideas of this with you when we meet, is to set up an annual round the city bike ride. And I think if you started, and by that I mean the island part of the city, although we could extend it up to Portsmouth Hill if people would like to, but actually to get kids doing it, to try, do it, if we do it as a charity thing as well, what that means is that we will be saying to motorists on that day, on a pre-advertised date, you won't be able to drive around Portsmouth very easily on this day, but then you probably can't that easily anyway on a weekend. But we are going to set up an annual round the city bike ride so that children, and you can have it starting at all different times, like the Great South Run, so those really quick cyclists can go off first and the slower ones can start, you know, later in the day. But actually, so that people start to find the safe routes around the city, down the Eastern Road, through Southsea, back up through, round by the Mountbatten Centre and that cycle route round through there, so that actually people that have never cycled on them before do it. Children who don't normally cycle on roads start to do it. We could do it in conjunction with the police, with health, with key partners. But this, not only will it get people cycling, but it's going to give focus to the cycling agenda across the whole city. It'll be covered in the media, on the radio, on the TV. This is exactly what we need. We need to use all the tools at our fingertips to try and get people on their bikes and get them cycling more around the city. So that's one of the things that I really want to talk to you guys about. Thank you so much for the work on this. It's really impressive, and I'm looking forward to meeting you in the next 4 weeks so that we can take this further. Thank you.
So, I think...
John, I've got a question for you.
Certainly.
All right. It's just one thing I think Donna's right. There's lots of really interesting stuff here. And I'm sure we will all be wanting to pick up on. There's one thing I thought is missing that I thought could be really helpful, which is about trying to get kids to cycle. And when I was a kid, all schools had cycling proficiency. In every school, you got taught how to cycle safely. Now, I know nationally there's been a push for this, and Michael Gove won't allow that in schools nationally. But why do we not have an option here or an aim here with public health to try to make sure that every school in the city teaches kids how to cycle safely? And that seems to me that's a really easy thing that we can do through public health. It happens everywhere already.
We have that in Portsmouth schools.
It's often everywhere, but it doesn't.
It's not compulsory.
And that, I think, is if we could be doing more of that, then more kids feel safer, and crucially, more parents feel that their kids are safe. And if we could make sure that that happened in every single school, for every single kid, that would be hugely useful.
Absolutely, I agree with you. Sorry if it didn't come out clearly enough. It is in the document. You know, we think every child should be able to cycle to school, and every parent should be able to feel comfortable that their child is not doing something unusually dangerous when they do that, and that's to do with both the environment the children cycle in and the training they've been offered. So absolutely agree with that.
I think one of the issues is we have addressed that, Gerald, and one of the things is trying to get a space in the school curriculum for this to happen during school time, and head teachers aren't very keen on doing that. So it obviously then falls to getting people to stay on after school or come in on a Saturday morning and doing that. And I think we've had some success with that, and Mark here is running that for us, and it is an ambition of ours to, as you say, make sure our children learn to cycle safely. And I did suggest at one point that maybe our colleagues from the Cycle Forum would be interested in helping some of that training.
I think there are some qualified cycling instructors around, so maybe possible. Sorry, Liv.
Yeah, just one point there. It's not just teaching the children to cycle safely, but to persuade some of the head teachers to allow the children to bring their bikes to school.
Yeah,
because I was governor at a school where the head and the governing body just refused. They said they didn't have the storage, and I think some pressure needs to be put on those who are not willing to sort of help in that way.
Certainly. Charlie.
The 2 points I want to make, one is around education and one is around crime reduction. Because overall, absolutely support and endorse as a cyclist this strategy. As someone that's trying to run a bike-related business with the operator of the Community Cycle Hub, again, completely support and endorse this strategy. And it sort of picks up on what Joe was saying. Once someone gets on a bike, keeping them on a bike is relatively easy. Getting them on a bike in the first place is difficult. I mean, the issue around the education business is the gap at secondary school. We put a lot of effort and we're very successful at the sign-up at junior school, particularly bikeability level 2, for those who know the jargon, but our take-up at level 3 is really poor. And it's really encouraging that there are a number of education establishments and colleges here represented. And again, maybe part of the strategy could be a direct focus at secondary schools and on to college Because the other part is we found, since running the community cycle club on Eastern Church Avenue, a number of overseas students that come and buy a bike from us, and then actually they don't even know which side of the road to ride on, let alone how to ride a bike safely. And for any of you that have experienced that, it was interesting hearing Ian's comments earlier on, that we want to encourage more students to cycle, but actually if they've never driven any sort of vehicle on our streets, and now we're asking them to ride a bike in Portsmouth, that's a massive ask. And so this business about education it's good at junior school, it could improve at secondary school, and there's probably a bigger effort to make it sort of college and beyond. Because if we can keep people on bikes through that journey, they're so much more likely to become cycle commuters. All of us here that are cycle commuters were definitely cycling as kids. So that was the issue about education. And as we do that, it will increase economic viability. Because on behalf of our young people, the best chance they've got of getting a job is being able to travel to that job. And the cheapest, most efficient way in Portsmouth of doing that is on a bike. So again, from an economic viability point of view, we've got a really strong argument for supporting this strategy. And then the other point around crime, we know that cycle theft is, if not the single highest crime type in the city, it's one of the single highest crime types. We know that bikes are used as currency in drug-related activity, and we know we can improve on what we're currently doing. And much of the improvement is quite simply education. It's teaching people to lock their bike up properly. The number of bike shops around the city are now offering the police-approved bikes. They're incredibly good value. I think a small further investment in that area, which all bike shops can get involved in that. It's not unique to individual bike shops. All bike shops can get involved in that scheme. But on the crime side and the education side, again, I would like to put my full support in trying to ensure that those bits are clearly articulated. No additional cost, but it's about providing that continuity from junior school, senior school, college, university, and then making sure people are educated on how to do it safely and securely as well.
Absolutely, absolutely agree. And every point in the document, I couldn't bring out obviously in just a short presentation, but so it is in there. Develop cycle awareness and incentive schemes targeted at 14 to 16-year-olds. This is the key age for intervention. So absolutely.
I just wanted to make a couple of points. The first one was just around when you were talking about working up schemes and not having the funding to necessarily deliver them. I mentioned our partners, the number of partners we work with earlier, and one of those partners is Swindon, so we've been helping them with their cycle strategy, and they've been mapping a lot of the corridors for journeys to work, new to journeys, that sort of thing. And obviously what they're working towards is to have shovel-ready schemes. So once funding does become available, they're going to be in a really strong position because here it is, it's ready to go. So whilst it may seem the money isn't on the table now, there's obviously nothing wrong with working those schemes up ready for when funding does become available. And then the other thing I just wanted to say relating to Donna's idea for the mass participation event, that's Skyride, that's what we do. So this year in Southampton we had 11,000 people take to closed road streets for the day. Across the country 170,000 people have taken place in 14 of those events. Manchester, Birmingham, Leeds. They tend to be all up north, so I'm obviously really keen to get some more down here. But if you wanted to talk more about that concept and that idea of closing roads and getting people on their bikes for the day, then I'd be happy to.
So Ken wants to sort out a date to meet with you if he can, definitely, to go through that.
Sorry. Thanks, John. A few things. Firstly, I'm delighted you've got Cambridge in there. I know how cold it is. I think he was at university there. And I know also how the streets are designed. And the streets designed in a much more compact way, particularly in the centre, than they are here. So, and those figures come despite the fact there's a bike ban. There wants to be a bike ban for a few years, so those figures work. So I think design and planning are rather important. And I want to come back to planning, because I think there's several things in your planning section which I think can be done relatively quickly. So for instance, you're making the cross-party working group a consultation on planning applications. That I think can be done quite quickly. develop planning policy to allow civil contributions for improved sustainable transport infrastructure. I think that's essential. I think that can be done relatively quickly. It's just a case of asking, I think. I'm a little bit more nervous about prioritising planning applications for new homes where the developer commits to provide cycle storage for 75% more dwellings, because if that's 1,000 homes, then it becomes a priority. And that might come across other environmental agendas. But certainly some of the stuff in here, particularly on the planning side, I think can be done very quickly. And I would hope that Donna and Ken, Simon and Mark will work with planning colleagues to try and do that. But I think it's planning is part of the reason that we're here, or lack of planning. It's part of the reason that we're here. And I think if we can start to do it with particularly major developments, then I think we can get moving much faster than we might otherwise be. And by the way, cycle superhighways do work. Having lived in London for a few years, I've seen them in operation. They work fantastically well. As Donna said, we've already got basically one down Eastern Road in my room already. And they do work. But also with the Boris bikes, they work because Barclays sponsor them. And Barclays have to put loads of money in. So if we can find a private sponsor, Joe.
Yeah, they run at a loss.
Do they?
Yeah, Barclays put in about 4 or 5 million, but they still run at a loss, which the DFT subsidises them.
Okay.
But a commercial sponsor would be essential for the sustainability of them.
And then you can look at things like London, also what Mary Powers is trying to do as well, with those sorts of things. They could work quite well. So the package itself, particularly with planning, is great, because it's lack of planning that's got us here. And I think we have to rectify it. Sorry for taking too long.
Thank you. Okay, I think, Eric, perhaps if you want to bring us to a close, because I think we're coming up to the time we have to clear the room, and I know you've got more meetings to go to, so thank you everybody for coming. I hope it's been useful, I hope it's been interesting, and I look forward to talking to you again very soon.
You certainly will.
Thank you very much, John, for a great presentation. Thank you for everybody else for your engagement in the discussion afterwards, for your positive contributions, and I think we have laid a foundation for a good cycle strategy in Portsmouth. I think there's plenty of opportunity for the city to take cycling to the next level and to take to bring it to the next generations. Because I have 2 children, they're 11 and 14, and when they get 18, they might want to buy a car, but they won't be dependent on a car. They still get around on a bicycle, and I think that's probably that's what we need to work towards as a city. We need to be safe for our children to cycle, because if they're safe for our children, they'll be adults in the city, and they'll be less dependent on their cars, and they'll be their parents, etc. So hopefully we can take it further forward. Look forward to hearing from Donna. And again, thanks very much everybody for your contribution. And see you soon. Thank you.